Guilliman would see the 500 worlds rise in glory. He would have Ultramar become humanity's mightiest bastion and the foundation of something greater still. Yet, his detractors think he has reached too far. His hope already a dying dream. Only the God Emperor can know for sure, and his silence, some say, is damning. Hi, I'm Kevin from Miniatures Rundown, and today we're discussing the 500 Worlds Titus book set for Warhammer 40k and everything that's in it, plus some of my thoughts about the contents and if it's worth picking up. As we all know, Games Workshop likes to lead up to the end of a current edition with a campaign that moves the storyline forward in some way. And the 500 World series is shaping up to be no different, beginning with the first set, Titus. So the book set itself is really cool. It comes in this nice slipcase. There is some really cool art, a little bit of UV on the cover, really nice. Games Workshop's design and art is always really great, and this is no different. It comes in many different parts, which is a little bit different from the previous lead up into 10th edition, where it was just a series of books, mostly focusing on boarding actions. And it seems like the end of the edition, they like to do a lot with boarding actions, so they do a lot more with boarding actions here. So contains also the Titus detachments, which is for match play and for narrative play. We'll go over the contents of all these in a second, but just kind of showing off what's in here. Got a campaign map for the campaign system that's in here, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I think it's one of the best campaign systems they've done in a very long time. One of the best campaign systems, and this is a very glossy, and that's for a reason, because this isn't like a normal poster mat with stickers that you would normally put on. And there is a sticker sheet, but these aren't like normal stickers. These are more like the static clings. If you may have had those as a kid or something, you can put them on and take them off of the mat, which is really cool. So because the campaign system revolves around you moving your fleets and putting new infrastructure and even destroying planets, and of course tracking the power levels of your alliance. So there's a lot of reason to move stuff around, and that's why these are static cling and rather than regular stickers. It also means it's reusable. I personally might go a step further and 3D print seats for these and put magnets on them so that I don't wear them out or wrinkle them or ruin them. But as they are, they're going to work perfectly fine. Then we have the campaign book, the War on the Vespator Front. Has a whole campaign system in here. Talks about how you do everything in the campaign. And we'll go over that in a little bit more depth. None of this is going to be a super deep dive, but we're going to talk about the contents and what that might mean for you. Next is the Dread Incursions, which is another campaign set. This one revolves almost exclusively. It is exclusively about the boarding actions. There's 2 different campaigns in here that talk about boarding actions. And then the story portion, the Titus book, talks about one of everyone's favorite Space Marine, Demetrian Titus, and what he's doing on the Vespator Front and in the whole 500 Worlds Crusade. The first thing that I want to talk about is, and the thing that most people are really excited about, to be completely honest with everybody, is the Titus detachments, what you can use in your normal games and in narrative games. So this is really just bare bones. It's giving you rules to play your stuff. So it starts out with Space Marines. Once again, this is not going to be a deep tactical dive into what we're doing, what we're looking at here, but I'm going to point out some highlights and things that I noticed that I really like. So first we have Space Marine Detachment, the Orbital Assault Force. Deep strike anything. If you want to deep strike it, guess what? You can. It's really cool. A lot of people are talking about deep striking Land Raiders, which I remember back when the Blood Angels used to be able to deep strike a Land Raider, and that was really fun. And now deep striking a Land Raider full of, formerly Victrix Honor Guard. I know they got a nerf, so maybe not them, but maybe Blade Guard vets, Stern Guard vets, all kinds of things that you could pump into a transport and drop down and surprise your foe. Some of the strats are really cool. Suppression strafing. You can force battle shock once per battle round. And then the big thing is you can give precision to one unit, which is really crazy strong, making some units able to really snipe out important characters that normally can stand behind their bodyguard, and just being able to give precision to one unit with the tactical decapitation strat is really strong. Next, we have the Bastion Task Force, and this one really focuses on the battle line units in the Space Marine book. So you got all of your normal squads, not really like your Eradicators and stuff like that, but it's a focus on battle line. Battle line can retreat, shoot, and charge, which is really cool. Being able to retreat, shoot, and charge just gives you so much control over the battlefield. They also, if they attack something, they apply an Auspex scan to it, which does rerolls ones to hit for other things that shoot at it. And there's a lot of strats here that interact with the Auspex scan, so that's really important. Artifacts also have some interaction too. Artifact for range precision to battle line. So once again, we're giving precision out. Eye of the Primarch is the name of the artifact. Battle line units in that character's unit get precision, which is, once again, not quite as strong for the battle line. It's still pretty nice. And then the other one that kind of caught my eye was Hero of the Chapter, which gives battle line to a joined unit. So, Eradicators weren't battle line. Now they can be, if you have someone that can join them, like Apothecary or something like that. Strats all focus on the battle line for interacting with the Auspex scan. I mean, not all of them, but a good portion of them. It really hinges off of that Auspex scan going out. The last Space Marine one we have here is the Reclamation Force. So it focuses on, this is a really aggressive detachment, and I think it's the one that they kind of focus on Titus with, which I guess makes sense. Oh, I guess not really Titus. Yeah, with Titus here, because for the Oath of Reclamation specifically calls out Titus's keyword. So it does really focus on Titus, and as we all know from Space Marine 2, Titus, kind of an angry boy, likes to really run forward and chop up the Xenos and heretics. But it relies on attacking objectives and defending them, improving AP and reducing wound rolls for you respectively being attacking stuff that's on objectives and then being attacked while you're on objectives. Shoot and charge after fallback strat. The Scions and Guilliman strat is what it's called. You can shoot and charge after you fall back, which is really cool. Once again, as I said in a previous attachment, being able to fall back, shoot, and charge, it's a really strong ability. The Furious Dedication strat gives a +2 to charge and 1 to attacks with melee weapons. That's crazy good. Being able to either deep strike or come out from tactical reserve with getting a +2 to charge and +1 to attacks with melee weapons. Now you can only use this once per turn, so you can't sneakily double up on this by doing this in the charge phase and then also doing it in the fight phase. So you're limited to once per turn with this, which is a good thing. Regardless, it's still a super strong strat. And then the main antagonist of the 500 Worlds book is the Necrons, and they've been given quite a few really cool rules. Actually, I really like some of these detachments. They're really interesting and thematic. Whether or not they're good, I don't really know. I don't play Necrons, so I don't know. But this is probably my favorite Necron detachment, even if maybe it isn't the strongest, is the Pantheon of Woe, which focuses on the Catan shards. And so the Necron's broken pantheon of their quote unquote gods, all joining the battle now. And it's, of course, that's insane. And this antediluvian horror that comes with the Catan, because they're older than, a lot of the planets and stars and civilizations out there themselves. It's really cool. And the really thematic thing that they have going on here is the distortion field aura that the Catan will have. It gives a +1 AP to attacking units when you attack units that are within 6 inches of Necron monsters. So it's they're around the Catan and they're just kind of dissolving and their armor is weakening. So that's really cool and thematic. I really enjoy the cinematics of that. They have a strat cost increaser with the artifact Singularity Matrix. And I always love the names of Necron artifacts or Necron artifacts and abilities, because it's always transmogrification engine and just weird science-y stuff. It's really cool. And this is no different. The Singularity Matrix. I don't know what that says by itself, but obviously it makes it harder to do strats. The mass transmogrification, I just said transmogrification earlier, and then I come up with this. Mass transmogrification strat to trigger reanimation protocols when a Catan destroys an enemy within 6. That is super interesting. If you play against Necrons, which I have on occasion, the reanimation protocols is a really annoying part of their army, and this only seeks to further reinforce that. So when a Catan destroys something, you get to trigger reanimation protocols and bring back dudes. And the fluff behind it, the little fluff blurb, is that the power of the Catan rips the foe's greatest assets apart and forcibly reknits nearby Necron soldiery using the stolen corporeal matter. That's awesome. I really like that. The molecular erosion strat, once again, just a great name. Forces battle shock at a -1 and does D3 +1 mortal wounds if failed. So you get to just really demoralize the enemy, and if they fail, you also dissolve them. It's once again just really gives like more power and like horror to the Catan. And but because they are horrifying. They're pretty awful. There's a reason the Necrons turned on them. Next Necron detachment we have is the Cursed Legion. This one focuses on the destroyers. So the destroyers are kind of a subsect of Necrons. They're not so much infected with the virus, but kind of like they're Necrons that have gone even more insane. They have fully given in to their mechanical selves and seek to destroy all life. And this detachment kind of reflects that. It adds 2 strength to other Necrons when a destroyer cult destroys a unit or brings a unit below half strength. So a destroyer unit at range or even up close, because there's melee destroyer units, of course, too, brings other Necrons up in strength when it destroys or weakens an enemy unit. So it's like, and the way this is described, of course, is that the destroyers are attacking and destroying the enemy, and other Necrons are getting emboldened and kind of getting like a fervor that would normally not be a part of their personality, that they're becoming more of a destroyer. So that's really cool. The Murder Mind artifact, once again, just a great name, turns a Cryptek into a destroyer cult model, gives it a 3+ move, but it can only just join destroyer cult units. Basically, it turns a Cryptek and infects it with the destroyer mindset, which is, I can see all kinds of awesome conversion opportunity to make a model that represents a Cryptek that has become enamored with the destroyer mindset, that it becomes one of them while also keeping its, arcanoscience background. Like, that's a really potent, like fluff-wise, that's a really potent combination of things. Not only do you have mad science, you have a psychopath behind it. The Mortis Protocol strat activates reanimation protocols on a unit near destroyer cult unit that destroyed an enemy unit. I said unit a lot. But that aside, it's really, once again, another way to trigger reanimation protocols. And is, the destroyer kills, and then that triggers reanimation, so bring some guys back. And once again, I'm going to read the fluff excerpt because I think it's really cool. In the absolute destruction of their enemies, the corrupted Necrons find fresh purpose and a macabre simulacrum of new life. That's awesome. Driven to Butchery strat gives destroyer cult advance and shoot and charge once per turn only. Once again, another way to get more movement and utility out of your models. Allows you to move, shoot, and charge. It's only once per turn though, so you can't double up in the shoot and the charge phase, because it lasts for the turn. So if it didn't have that restriction, you could do both, but you can't. So destroyer cult advance and charge, really handy for if you want to get more movement out of your destroyers and get some more offensive capability, either the Scorpback destroyers or just the heavy destroyers or normal destroyers all can benefit from this. So you get quite a bit more movement and more offensive ability out of your destroyers. And last, we have the Cryptek Conclave. I really like what they did with Necrons when they kind of reimagined them way back in 4th edition. 4th/5th edition, when they brought the Crypteks into it, when they kind of added like these scientist character models to the army. Kind of gives another class that's not a lord. I know I'm talking about ancient history, and Necrons are ancient, so it's appropriate. But anyway, so this one, the Cryptek Conclave, focuses on Cryptek models, giving the Cryptek unit anti-infantry 3+, anti-mounted 4+, assault, heavy, or ignores cover. You get to choose from any of those in your shooting phase every time a Cryptek unit shoots. And Crypteks often can join other units, so it's really handy to be able to give like this adaptability to your different units depending on what you're shooting at. Kind of plays into that whole Cryptek thing of like tinkering with stuff and like enhancing. So I think that's a really cool ability. I'm not sure how handy it actually is, like competitively speaking, but narratively, I really, really like it. So this is a really fun artifact. The Gauntlet of Compression adds 6-inch range to a unit's weapons. As I said earlier, Crypteks often join other units, so adding 6-inch range to a unit's weapons, that sounds pretty good. On a lot of competitive battlefields, that extra 6 inches of range might not be quite as effective just because boards tend to be pretty congested. So getting a lot of extra range might not be useful, but on some layouts it might be. The Micro Scarab Swarm gives a 5-up invulnerable save to a unit, or if they're an immortal unit, they get a 4-up invulnerable save, which already makes a durable Necron unit annoyingly hard to get rid of. The Synergistic Empowerment strat gives a Cryptek keyword to a nearby Necron unit. So all those abilities I discussed earlier affect Cryptek units only. So now you can make a non-monster, non-vehicle Necron unit also a Cryptek and give it those extra abilities in the shooting phase. Well, that's really cool. So now we're moving on to the War on the Vespator front. So this is a campaign where you can play out the story that's happening in 500 Worlds Titus, or it can just be your own campaign. It doesn't have to necessarily involve the events that are occurring in the storyline. But either way, it's a really cool campaign system, and it's probably one of the best they put out for 40K in a really long time. I really enjoy narrative 40K. I go to the Grand Narrative in Atlanta every year and really get into it. And it's a really great event. So narrative 40K is a big part of my enjoyment of 40K. So this really speaks to me on a very deep level, and I really like it. It comes also with the sticker pack, which, as I said, they're not traditional stickers. These are the static cling, peel, and stick. You can take them off, put them back on. And, of course, the campaign map. I'll unfold it a little bit for the camera. And if you get it, you'll feel that it's like a super smooth. It's made to work with the static clings. And it has all kinds of tracking for the status of the planets, infrastructure, and the different theaters of war that are on each planet, which I'll get into in a second here. The campaign looks amazing. It contains rules for moving fleets and executing attacks on planets, and possibly even destroying planets. When you're attacking, you get to choose what type of attack you want to perform, and that can either increase power level, it can destroy infrastructure, or you can even attack other fleets in the system. And then what the theaters are is you get to determine the kind of battlefield you're going to fight on. So being the attacker gives you a lot of power over the kind of mission you're going to play, which is, I mean, that's fitting for a narrative, in a narrative aspect. Like, you're attacking, so, you know, the defenders are reacting to what you're doing, and it's a whole planet. So like, there's just every angle you can come from. And I really like what this is. And like, so it has the orbits, you can put your fleets here. So how it works though, is that the players are divided into 3 alliances, and you can divide however you wish. It doesn't have to be, once again, related to the Vespator front storyline. It can be, you know, a Votan and a Tyranid if you wanted to. And it's not, I would not choose that for a narrative alliance, but you could do it if you wanted to. So it's really set up for 3 different alliances to be playing against each other. So at a minimum, you could have 3 players participating in this and have a full campaign experience. And it kind of can go however high as you want. Of course, the more players, the more complicated it gets. But I could see, you know, probably like 8 players, 9 players being a really good number to have to participate in this. Fleets are the primary way you choose where you're able to launch attacks. So you have options to be able to, like, each campaign step, you can choose to move your fleets around, attack, build infrastructure, all that, or do other actions. You can even do, so I talked about boarding actions earlier. You can even do boarding action missions to attack other fleets using the boarding actions missions. So you can even like kick other fleets out of the system by attacking them directly, which is really interesting. And you get to play some boarding actions. I think boarding actions is actually a really interesting way to enjoy 40K because you have a much smaller roster of models that are eligible to participate, and you have to kind of think about the game a little bit differently. So I think that it's a really interesting way to interact with 40K. What kind of attack you decide to do determines the mission. The higher defender's power level on a planet gives various buffs depending on the mission. Usually they get to activate an ability more often or at all, depending on what the defender's power level is. You can build infrastructure on a planet, which impacts how you interact with a campaign. It mostly manipulates power level, but a couple of them, like the communications array, allows you to attack planets that are further away, or move to planets that are further away, which allows you to attack them. The other interesting thing that's in this campaign as well is that there are a lot of rubber banding effects to help lagging alliances or stifle ones that are pulling ahead. For instance, you could have a cult uprising. Like if you're really far ahead, you could have a cult uprising that destroys your infrastructure, or Xenobeast migrations that disrupt everyone's fleet movements in the system. So like you have a bunch of stuff planned out, and then now a bunch of Xenobeasts are moving, so you're trying to get out of the way. So all your fleets are disrupted, and your plans just all go haywire. Which, you know, Murphy's first rule and all that. Different environments depending on the attacker's whims and what the environments are on a planet being attacked, such as a rad zone, reducing the range at which you can be targeted, or deadlands that make monsters and vehicles faster and more lethal. I think this is really cool. So like each planet kind of has a personality. So, you know, you can attack a planet and You don't like getting shot a whole lot, so you're choosing a rad zone because you don't want to get shot as much. And then if you like monsters and vehicles, choose the Deadlands, and that can make your monsters faster and, give them bonuses to attack. I think that's really cool that you can kind of tailor how you like to play to your attacking style. And what that means too is like you can coordinate with your alliance members of like, okay, you have a lot of monsters, like you're in a Tyranid alliance, for instance. Like, all right, you're playing Crusher Stampede and you really like a lot of monsters. This planet has a Deadlands. We need you to go attack that because your monsters are only going to get better there. And I think that's a really cool aspect of this is like you can really develop a personality for your force and like things that your alliance can depend on you to do. So that's very narrative. Like I think that speaks really well to the narrative side of 40K, which I really enjoy. Overall, this campaign looks like a blast and could be adapted to fit any number of homebrew theaters of war, or of course playing through the story of 500 Worlds itself. Like there is no reason why you have to limit this to just the 500 Worlds. You could totally come up with a homebrew system and use this campaign system and put it right on top of it, and just you make your own map and use magnets instead of stickers. Like there's no reason you couldn't adapt this to whatever it is that you want, whatever kind of story you want to tell with this campaign system. I really, really like this. I think this is a hit, not necessarily a hidden gem. I think they've done, Games Workshop has done a lot of work to kind of like really push this part of it forward and narrative gaming in general forward a little bit more. I think that this is really worth paying attention to, especially if you enjoy narrative 40K. I think this is a really worthwhile thing to pay attention to. So next we're doing Dread Incursions here. Dread Incursions is a more traditional story-based campaign. It has all the trappings that you would normally see in a typical campaign of like this scenario leads to this scenario, et cetera, trying to tell a story specifically within this setting of the Vespator system. So really this centers a lot around ship-based, because of boarding actions, it's centering around ship-based combat and also invading Necron tombs. It makes use of both sets of terrain to tell a story. There's two different campaigns in here. One of them is the more traditional, you start here in one section and then you move on to the next section, then to the next section, depending on what the results of the previous mission are. The next one is a little bit more intense, where things that happen on one board affect what's happening on another board at the same time. So that's really cool. Where you could have, touching a Necron artifact in the Necron table affects something that's going on in space on the boarding action table. So that's really interesting. I think that'd be a cool thing to like kind of have a weekend over. And also this is really cool for because this is all boarding action, so it all takes place on a smaller, basically half size of a normal table. If you have less room in which to play your game, this is a good way to have some narrative play, like full scale feeling narrative play in a smaller space. And last but certainly not least, Titus, the titular Space Marine that we all love, except for a certain chaplain, which we don't talk about. So the story so far focuses on Demetrian Titus and his crusade to bring the 500 worlds to Ultramar back into the fold. Specifically, this story revolves on the Vespator front. It's not all about the 500 worlds. And the 500 worlds is a little misleading because it's not really like technically 500 worlds. It's kind of more of a saying, a feeling of like the entirety of the Ultramar system, of like everything that encompasses the Ultramar system. And in this case, is focusing on the Vespator front, which is what the map is in the previous book. As you can see the campaign map and all that stuff. That is the Vespator front, and that's where this story takes place. But you can see that all kinds of things, like you got Nova Mangor and all sorts of cool art and miniatures. And I'm not going to spoil the story for anybody, because if you're wanting to get this specifically for the story, then it would be remiss of me to ruin the story for you. However, because it was already spoiled on Warhammer Community, I can say this. It does talk about the demise of Captain Acheron and Chiron from Space Marine 2. Rest in peace. The main antagonist of this storyline is, and of course he has his own model, is Necrosaur Amentar. Possibly, it's kind of inferred here that he's the first destroyer, bringing other Necrons into his fold to eliminate all life. So he's kind of forming a destroyer cult around himself to like remove all life from the Ultramar system. And he's He's insane, more insane than a typical Necron anyway. He's so all the Necrons in the area, because the 500 Worlds of Ultramar isn't really a unified front. There are worlds that have been lost for centuries, possibly millennia. There are tomb worlds. When Mortarion invaded, he ruined a bunch of worlds in his wake. And so like the 500 Worlds is very desperate and very divided. The story here revolves a whole lot around Titus and Guilliman basically commissioning Titus to bring the 500 Worlds back to heel and kind of building a little empire. And that's something Guilliman gets a little bit of criticism for, maybe a lot of criticism for. But once again, I'm not going to really ruin the story. However, so there's this text in the back of the book that I think is really cool, and I'm gonna point it out, even if it is a little bit of a spoiler. Is that there's this transmission that comes that has really old signifiers that they seem like they might be fake, but they're so old and they do actually check out. And so it comes from even like before the time of the Imperium, all the way back to the Age of Darkness. And all it says is two things. And it comes from the Dark Angels. It says, "Brother, we need to talk." So the Lion wants to talk to Guilliman. And this would be the first meeting of the Primarch since the Scouring. This is pretty big because, first of all, Guilliman kind of is being a little empire buildy, and the Lion has always kind of accused Guilliman of wanting to be an emperor himself. And so the meeting of these two might not be peaceful. We'll just have to see. But I think that was really interesting. I think this is a great set. Of course, I'm a hobbyist that enjoys all kinds of 40k. I like competitive games, narrative games, and lore. So for me, this set is everything I could want from a campaign setting. It's nice that it comes in several books, so I don't have to leaf through the boarding action rules to get to the story of Titus fighting Ammentar. However, if you're not interested in campaign play or lore, this probably isn't worth a price just for the tiny detachment booklet. You can already get that on Warhammer Community, so there's no really reason to buy that if all you're looking for is the detachments. Thank you for joining me on Miniatures Rundown. If you like this content and want to see more, like, comment, and subscribe.